everybody. Welcome to our first ever Ask AHA PM's Anything event. My name is Chelsea Slocum, and I'm here from our marketing team at AHA. We are thrilled to host this event and dive into what's top of mind for you as product managers. As I mentioned, this is our first time hosting an open Q&A like this. So we're going to have a lot of fun, and we are so excited to have you join us today and really get to some organic conversations driven by all of the awesome questions that you submitted. So let's kick things off with some quick introductions from our panel. I am excited to introduce to you our senior product managers, Austin Merritt, Kelly Sebes, and Sarah Moisan-Thomas. Come on camera. Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. A little bit about them. Austin is our Director of Product Management. He has been with AHA for over 8 years. He is an expert in how we build software, and he is ready to answer your questions around the AHA framework, executive reporting, and a bunch of other stuff. So Austin's our guy. Kelly is a Principal Product Manager overseeing AHA Ideas with deep experience in idea management. So all our customer feedback queries are going to head her way. And then Sarah Moisan-Thomas is our Senior Product Manager for both AHA Whiteboards and AHA Knowledge. She's really been hands-on prioritizing features and setting KPIs up to measure success. She brings a wealth of experience in shaping both of these new products, and we're super happy to have her come on today. So we've really received a wide range of questions from you in advance, which was amazing, from PM career development questions to AI, to feature prioritization. And since so many of you submitted questions in advance, we've had an opportunity to group them by theme to cover as much as possible and really highlight common topics. So with that, here we go. To get us started, we would love to know which parts of being a PM challenge you the most. We have a poll up. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to add any extra thoughts in the chat. And while you're doing that, let's kick things off with Sarah. Sarah, how would you answer that poll? What is the most difficult part about being a PM?
I think the trickiest thing is that there's always more to do than you can get done, right? There's always more research you could have done, more communication. You can always find things that you could have done better. So I think there's maybe a constant process of prioritizing how you spend your own time to make sure you're making the biggest impact as possible without spreading yourself too thin. So I think every PM that I know has had to work to find the right balance there. So I think that'd be my answer.
That's awesome. Thank you. Austin, I'd love to go to you next. You're juggling a lot all the time, right? You know what it's like. You've been in the trenches for a while.
Yes.
So what major product-related activity have you dropped so you can focus on what matters?
Yeah, I thought this was such an interesting question. It's hard to like find an activity that you could completely drop. And so the thing that came to mind for me, it's maybe not as much as dropping a product related activity as much as focusing. And the thing that came to mind was travel. It's like it's been a long time since I've had to go on a long trip to go visit with a customer. And because I do that all online now, I can have a call with a customer in Germany in the morning and then California later in the day, and and then lead a cross-functional product meeting all in the same day. It's really helped me to, I guess, focus on getting the work done that really, really matters.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And it's not a question, or excuse me, not an answer that would have occurred to me, but it is the power of remote work at play there. I absolutely love the variety of tasks and responsibilities you can weave into your day because you're doing it all on your own, in your own office, which is just awesome. I have one more question, and I think it's the funnest one. So it's going to Kelly. If you could solve one product challenge with a magic wand, what would it be?
I love this question. I actually ask this question a lot of times in customer interviews, and now it's coming back to me. It's only fair. There's this classic paradox with product management, speaking of having too much to do, where you want as much customer feedback and input as you can get, but then you're overwhelmed by it, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this feedback? How do I handle it? So I would solve that problem with the magic wand, but since I don't have one instead, and I happen to manage a product that helps solve this problem, I've been focused on delivering, improvements that we can add to the product to help, make that as fast as possible.
Mhm.
Sometimes we deliver those improvements so fast it might feel magical. And the latest feature we just released last week was AI powered merge suggestions. And, AI can often feel like magic too, and it's really well suited to help solve a lot of these feedback problems. And kind of not ironically, our AI features do have a little magic wand icon next to them. So there you go, using magic to help solve those problems.
We're making our own magic wands, really.
Exactly.
I love that's
I love
that's
that. Empowered. Yes.
great. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Now that we've explored some of the biggest challenges PMs face, let's shift to some growth and development topics. We received questions from a number of folks who are new to PM. Maybe you're switching industries and you're wondering where to focus, how to apply skills in new ways. So we want to dig in to some of those product development topics or product skill development topics with you. And I'm going to start with Austin in the hot seat. So one person submitted that they are new to AHA software, but they're also new to the PM role all up. So what skills and areas do you think that they should concentrate on most?
Yeah, it's a great question. I hear this question often, or other varieties of it, like how do I get into PM? Interestingly, in my career, I've transitioned from a CS role into PM 2 different times, and so maybe my answer is a little bit biased, but I think that um, regardless of what role you're coming from, like doing that deep dive into your product and understanding the product really, really well, understanding your customers really well and how they use it. I think the reason CS is such a great transition point into PM is because you're in that all day, every day. And so you get that knowledge just by default of the work that you're doing. But if you don't have that advantage, then yeah, you've got to dive in and understand those things. And I would say too, it's beyond just learning the kind of technical aspects of the product. It's also working on your own skills about how you talk with customers. So your interviewing skills, your research skills, um, learning how to validate your assumptions because
Mhm.
we need to develop a point of view with the product that we're building. And so how do I make sure that the thoughts that I have or the ideas that I have are valid and building those skills of getting that in front of customers, getting their feedback and working from there, I think is really important. I would mention too, this is also a really easy place to use AI. I've found that it's, you've got your interview questions and you can run a quick check to make sure there's no bias or you're not leading with the questions that you're asking, which I think are can be challenging skills to gain, and AI can really help you have a big leg up there.
I have a follow-up question for you, if you don't mind, about
Yeah.
that. It kind of transitions into the next question on the screen as well. But these skills that you've developed and that you're coaching others to start developing too, do you think they're transferable across industries and across sectors? One person was curious if the skills they've gained in one sector as a PM do transfer to another, or are there some that don't?
Right. I would say that generally speaking, the skills transfer, right? If you're focusing on your kind of skills of, like I mentioned, the ones I mentioned before, but also even other skills like driving progress with engineering, making sure that the team's on track, and obviously communicating internally, like making sure that you are able to share your thoughts succinctly and get people aligned with that. Like these are all skills that are critical regardless of what industry you're working in. I think the great part of that is it's like, like once I've really started getting confident in those skills, I don't have to think as much about that, and I can focus then more on now. Okay, now I'm transitioning into a new industry, so I can spend my time and my energy learning about that industry, which is
Exactly.
going to be the things that are less transferable, obviously.
That's awesome. Well, Austin, you're kind of the person that I feel like I could just sit and talk to all day and ask it like 1,000 more follow-up questions about career-related paths in product management. But I need to switch gears for the sake of time, and I'm going to talk to Sarah for a minute. So we have to talk about AI, right? It's something that's the top of mind for everybody. We're all using it. We're all thinking about it. But for product managers, we had several questions about this. How much should we know? How much is too much? Is there a right mix? I mean, I think the jury's out, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think AI is another tool in the toolkit, right? So we have to find ways to integrate it into the work that we're doing where it makes sense. So Austin gave some great examples there, but also, using it to speed up things like analyzing data or writing content, things that help
Yep.
get you some of your time back to do more strategic work that humans are better at than natural language processors, right? So, there's so much context that goes into making any of these product decisions that we make on a daily basis, and so much collaboration we have to do with stakeholders to understand what they need and get buy-in and, really work with our customers. So I think, that's where those product management skills that Austin was describing come in and are still really critical, even in the world with AI. So in terms of the how much should we know, that is definitely going to depend a little on your products and what industry you're in. But I think it is important to just stay aware of the new capabilities that are coming out. Obviously, it's moving really fast. And you want to be able to identify if there are new capabilities that could be good for you to use, either in your own process or also in the products that you manage.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're recording this because I want to hear you say all of that again. So I'm glad I get to watch that. Thank you so much. So with skill development in mind, let's get to some of the more tactical kind of meaty questions around the roles of a product manager versus a product owner. A few people submitted questions and asked about navigating the transition between these two roles and shared that they're confusing, right? They overlap sometimes they don't. Are there any clear delineations between the responsibilities of a product manager and a product owner? And so we got enough questions that we had to make it a theme. And I'd love to start with you, Kelly. What are some key differences between a PM and a PO's responsibilities, specifically those that often get mixed up? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I've worked at a number of companies in product management now, and every company is different, right? So, when you have slightly different definitions of roles and how you work with leadership and how involved leadership is in product or isn't, it's just, it's going to be different from company to company. And at AHA specifically, we don't actually have product owners. The product managers, we're, I guess, full stack product managers. We do everything from contribute to strategy for our product all the way down to those day-to-day, tactical working with developers and getting things done, right? So we have the full gamut. The other companies I've worked at where we have had these different roles, depending on how you define them, it doesn't really matter. The most important part is that you're really tightly coordinated and you collaborate closely between those two roles. Because as the PM, you might be coming up with a strategy, but you rely on your product owner to actually, execute on that well. And they're going to make those, micro decisions day to day when they're, tactically operating the development team. And you need to make sure those decisions are informed by the strategy and they really know it intimately.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Kelly. If I can just jump in there, that there's definitely pros and cons that I've seen working with POs and PMs. On one hand, can be a good way to solve that problem of PMs not having enough time to do everything, so you divide the responsibilities. But I think what you mentioned, Kelly, is really key, that it adds difficulty in communicating that strategy through more people. So you have to be really crystal clear on the vision and the strategy and also all the assumptions that people are making to make sure that everyone in those different roles can make decisions in a way that are aligned in the same direction.
Yeah, I think y'all are both sort of touching on an interesting thing, which is, if you happen to be in an organization where you're like, gosh, it would be really nice to separate PO and PM because I feel like I'm doing both of these things. I think that in some ways, like, you have an advantage. I know that's like Kelly, like you said, I mean, this is how we work. And it is interesting, it's like we have to make these shifts throughout probably like throughout the day, every day, but definitely every week. It's like, actually on Thursday mornings, this afternoon, we all have meetings with engineering, and we're going to be we've got our PO hat on now, right? Like we're focused on the backlog. Is it in shape? Like, is everything ready? Do they have what they need? Whereas, later we might be leading a team with marketing and CS, and so we got to bring it up a level and talk more kind of broadly about what's happening across the product. So yeah, it's like kind of zooming in, zooming out, and it really gives you a better feel of what's happening across the product.
I love that point of view. And and that you all feel comfortable enough to just chime in. I love that's the best part. That's what this is all about. So let's continue to do that throughout these conversations. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on and I'm going to talk about Kelly's favorite topic, customer discovery. So, it's definitely a core aspect of building the right product, right? And many of you asked questions about gathering feedback and ideas portals best practices. So I am going to turn the spotlight on Kelly for this section. And let's start with the first question. How do you gather input from all of your customers about what they need? That is a huge question.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest question I'm probably going to ask today, and it's all for you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's a big
Yeah.
question. Like you said, understanding what your customers need is critical to building a lovable and successful product. And you're never done with it either, right? Discovery happens all throughout the product life cycle, from talking to customers to understand their top challenges, maybe needs for new products, to all the way down to getting that detailed feedback on designs for new features, and then feedback after the fact when you launch new features too. Like it's always happening. So you want to know how do we do this? Well, we have lots of feedback channels. As everybody on this call probably knows, we use our own ideas portal, of course, to get all of your great ideas. And we were fortunate enough to have a lot of product people as our own customers. So those ideas are very high quality, I have to say. And the PMs on our team, the way we work, we're kind of each focused on a specific area of our product suite. So we have a goal to review all the ideas that came in for our area of the product within 2 days and get back to customers, ask those deep dive questions, respond to comments as well. And so we do that. I spend a little bit of time each day, usually just going through the new ones that came through each day, and it becomes manageable that way when you handle it ongoing. So we used our ideas portal, but then of course we also talk to our customer success team, which is fabulous, and they share a lot of customer needs with us. We run polls in our application, and of course we talk to customers too. We like to have conversations with our customers, and that's another area where we have a goal. So our whole PM UX team has a goal to talk to at least 2 customers a month. And we captured those interviews back in AHA too. So we capture those in AHA notes, we tie them to the research tab and, of the relevant idea or initiative or feature that we're researching. So we keep it all in AHA. Of course, we use our own product for this. So it's very, very useful that way. And I just want to mention, I mentioned a couple goals that we have, and that's really important to us to have those goals and that framework, because like we've been talking about, like we're busy, right? And it's so easy to get caught up in all the day-to-day stuff you have to do that it can be easy to say, oh, that's not urgent. It's not urgent to talk to that customer. It's not urgent to review the ideas. And so you don't do it. So I find it's really important to have those goals and to incorporate it into our daily lives. And then it's not such a big deal. And we still get those customer insights, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me take a look at a couple of those questions specifically. Oh, okay. So how do we leverage AHA automation to get customer feedback after a release? You can look at usage analytics, right, to see are people clicking on or using the new feature, and we do that. But those numbers can be tricky, in my opinion, and they can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So we actually love running in-app polls after we release a major new feature, where we can find out directly from the customers what they think about that feature and why as well. And honestly, it's just really fun to watch all those poll responses come in. I set a poll live and I just pick up the popcorn and you just watch all the answers come in. It's really useful. And we just get really actionable insights out of it too. And we can tie those back to future ideas and improvements for the future. So that's how I like to use AHA. I'll call it automation or an AHA feature to help get that feedback after a release. Let's see. And the next 2 questions are really all about prioritization. This is a tough question. You prioritize it in a couple of different times, I would say. You have when you're doing big upfront strategic planning, right? And so when we're doing that, we typically look for themes across all of our ideas that we could focus on strategically. And our AI exploration tool helps us with that, and talking to the CS team as well. And, we also consider the customer segments that are behind the ideas. We use scorecards and prioritization lists to help capture those top priorities as well. But then, so that's kind of like the big strategic planning, but then also just on an ongoing basis, like every day, when we're reviewing new ideas that come in, if we see one that's a quick win and it's tied to our strategy, we just jump on it, right? Why wait? And we turn it around within a few days. So that's always a lot of fun too.
That's so cool. Um, Again, I could just kind of hear you talk about this forever. Ideas is one of my favorite, our ideas portal is one of my favorite places to be in, and just read all that customer feedback, vote myself. I think it's just top notch, and I really enjoy that tool. Um, and I'm really glad that you ended on prioritization, actually, because that is the perfect transition to the next topic, which is prioritization. And the poll itself, I was really interested to see that the poll that everybody answered about the most challenging parts of being a PM, 57% of you said feature prioritization. And I was like, yes, I'm so glad we're talking about this. So I'd love to transition to Sarah for this question. While Kelly was focused on idea prioritization, what about features, right? What is your approach to feature prioritization within AHA? How can folks better use the tools within our software for their own prioritization needs? And so this is a big question again, but how do you prioritize features to be added to AHA?
Yeah. I think it's especially important for newer products like mine,
Yeah.
to be constantly prioritizing. And I think before you even get to prioritizing features, the most important step is to align on the goals and initiatives that you're targeting, right? Because there's a million good ideas out there. They're all coming in through Kelly's idea portal, right? But you can't build them all. So you need to have clarity on what you want to optimize for to figure out which ones are going to best serve those needs, right? So specifically, which problems are you going to solve with your product right now? Who are you going to solve them for so that you can really choose and prioritize those things that move that forward? And then getting alignment with leadership and stakeholders, ideally documenting that strategy somewhere so that everyone knows that we're working towards this shared goal and what we're optimizing for. At AHA specifically, kind of how we do it, we do have a structured planning cycle, but we also stay open to changes as new opportunities or new information come up. So we as PMs do a lot of research that's looking at all those ideas, talking with customers, talking with stakeholders. And then when we're ready for that planning cycle, we'll create feature prioritization views. So those act as kind of a working roadmap for us, easily ranked, really clear for everybody to see. And we then rank the features with the product value scorecard. And one thing that I think really helps here, actually, Austin set this up. So I always appreciate Austin whenever I'm setting the scorecards for things, is that we have really clearly defined criteria for what every single one of those scores means. So it makes it easier to choose the right priority and then also keep it consistent across all the features that I'm scoring and across other PMs as well on their team. So we can really compare apples to apples to understand where is the biggest impact that we can make.
Yeah,
and of course, oh yeah, go ahead, Austin.
Sorry. I was gonna say I'm glad you kind of reminded me of that too, because prior to having that clearly defined, how do you score each metric? Everyone was scoring things kind of subjectively, right? And so for me, I might think about this and score it one way. You might be thinking about it the same way, but score it differently. And so I would really encourage, if you have any sort of scoring system, to take that next step and actually define what is the criteria for a 1 versus a 5, or whatever your metrics are.
Yeah, you can add little help text in there. An easy one would be how many customers do we think would use this? 10%, 25%, 50, 75, right? And that makes it easier. Then you're making a more concrete decision. You're not just kind of pulling it out of the ether of, I think most people would use it, right? So you can really nail that down. How, and quantify, does a workaround exist for this? How good is that workaround? So you can really nail it down. And that also makes it easier to be consistent. When I'm prioritizing something 3 months from now, I can make it those decisions more closely aligned than if they weren't there. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And then the only other thing I want to call out before, I think maybe Austin, you might be better for the third question here, is that we do this process in a structured planning so that we can align on what we're working on, but it's also not set in stone, right? So the best plan we have right now. And then as we get new information, new insights come in from talking to customers, we can always be flexible and change it around. I think that's really key to make sure that we're continually adding as much value as we can for customers. So that's an ongoing piece of prioritization. It's not just a one-time activity, but something we need to be doing on a regular basis.
I would love to talk about road mapping. It would be remiss if we didn't. We have to talk about road mapping. We got lots of questions about it as well. Several questions around how to create and share and report on roadmaps effectively. So we're going to stick with you, Austin, for a little bit longer. And looking at all of these questions shared, they all kind of speak to the same core question, which I'm going to pose to you. How do you tailor roadmaps for specific audiences and different business units? And a lot of them were really focused on leadership, right? Executive stakeholders. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think if I a lot of the times we get questions about roadmaps and about reporting progress and sharing the plan, things like that. I think that's obviously all critical, but like really our responsibilities, if we think about ourselves as business leaders within the organization, they go beyond that. Like it's really about kind of bringing the team along with us on a journey where they're a part of the process of building that plan and believing in that plan. And not to go too much back to the question that we skipped about, like, how do I move from a feature factory to more goal oriented?
Bring it in.
Yeah, it's because that's part of it, right? It's like, can we work together kind of across the organization to align on the vision, right? And align on the initiatives and goals of each of our products. And then from there, like digging into the feedback that we're hearing from customers and tying that back so that everybody understands, like, regardless of what part of the organization they work in, they understand where we're headed and why. And then they see that validation that, we've got, the customer kind of input that's driving this. From there, it's like, right, it's just about what do different people need to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got that kind of shared commitment across the organization where we know what the highest impact things are. And so now who am I communicating to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I look at some of these questions, it's like, what do you use from a director level perspective? Well, like I can talk about specifics. Like I have a dashboard of my own that I use that has like prioritization views for each of the products that I work in. It's got timelines. It's got some metrics, like Kelly mentioned some of the goals we have earlier across the team. So it's got those metrics in there to just help me stay on top of how we're doing, how things are working. But that wouldn't be helpful for really anybody else in the organization. So then, okay, well, like, what does leadership need to see? Probably more at that initiative level.
Mm-hmm.
So create a custom roadmap that organizes the plan by those bigger kind of broader strategic themes. Or the CS team probably needs to see something that's a little bit more kind of calendar oriented, so they know, like, hey, I got to be ready to support this thing next week. I think that's the biggest key, is just to, like, don't try to force fit into any particular format. It's like, think about the audience, and how do I give them just what they need. It's all the same plan, right? You just report it at different levels and different levels of detail.
The beauty of it too, what you're saying, Austin, is also you don't have to force fit, right? Like that. I mean, there's so many different formats and views and reports and different ways to pull your live data and information together to fit the needs of different customers and different audiences and different stakeholders. So I love that. Thank you. And you really hit so many questions at once. Your professionalism is whoop, whoop, awesome. So I think that was great. Thank you. I am going to shift gears to our final theme, not really a theme, more how we work, which is a really exciting section. And we were really kind of working to get to this because this is where we really want to dig in. So we're going to wrap up our themes with a closer look at how we work day to day. Since our team lives in AHA every day, like we've been referencing how we do things, we're going to get to some more pointed questions about how we set things up, how we measure success, and maximize the product's potential. For the sake of time, I'm going to kind of popcorn around. So everybody be ready. And I'm going to start with Austin for the first question. If you were to grow into a large corporation, how would the AHA framework need to change, or could it actually just stay the same?
Well, first of all, the AHA framework. So Sarah mentioned earlier that we work within sort of a structured framework. That is the AHA framework. We haven't talked a lot about it, but like the purpose of it is to give us like a strategic approach to agile development. So it's like guided by strategy, kind of what I was talking about before. Everything aligns back to those strategic initiatives, but then which really allows us then on a week to week basis to move really fast because we don't have to guess whether or not everybody is aligned. We know that they're aligned, and now we can just focus on delivering what matters most. So that's what the AHA framework is. How would it change? I would think much of it would stay the same. Like, the foundation, that focus of providing strategic guidance to the more agile delivery work that's happening, that's core. Like, it's not going to change. I think we've given some thought already to like what would happen, how would this change in with more and more teams. I think it basically like you kind of take some steps to move the strategy to the portfolio level. So you've got that common set of goals and initiatives across the portfolio that then individual products can draw on when they're doing their planning. Probably a little more structure on the delivery side, like coordinating multiple sprints and organizing things in a way that makes it easy to report and across the team so that we're all looking at the same type of data. I think there would be things like that, but then like overall, I'd be like, we're not going to overcomplicate this. Right. There are some frameworks out there that I will not name that are like wildly complicated, and we would never go there with the AHA framework.
I love that.
I think it's interesting that, we've grown over the past just few years from a one product company to now we have a whole suite of 5 products, right? And, our team has barely grown at all to support that. And it's because this framework enables us to be so nimble, like Austin was saying, it really does scale for us.
You're right. I mean, it is wild to think 1 to 5. And actually, I'd love to talk to Sarah next about the next one because the 2 newest products are products that you're specifically focused on that you manage. And somebody wondered about the KPIs that you use to measure a successful project. And you've really been probably thinking hard and long about this with the recent launch of our 2 newest products. So how did you go about establishing that?
So our goals really focus on the outcomes that we want to see. So specifically, we track success metrics towards those, like certain thresholds of adoption, daily active use that we want to see, and also like preventing churn. So like I mentioned, we're very agile about changing course if we identify new opportunities that could bring us closer to those results we want to see. And I think that's really what you have to aim for with KPIs specifically, that they're about that end goal, not completing work that you want to complete as a way to get there, if that makes sense. So really focusing on the end outcome we want to achieve, and then we can be flexible in how we get there.
I'm going to popcorn around. Austin, I'm bringing you back in. Somebody asked a pretty tactical question and said, how do you set up projects and schedules in AHA? And they specifically requested an example. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
I can talk about that. Yeah, we looked at this one and we're like, okay, let's set up like a hypothetical example. And so we did that. So we the features board, which you see here, is obviously a place where you would kind of organize projects and your releases and plans. And so this screenshot like is a real look at how we organize ours. So we've got monthly releases where we kind of group all the work that's happening in the month. We're shipping it as it's completed, so we can see things turning green on the board as they go out. And then we have our weekly go-to-markets, and then those are organized into their own releases, which you can see the second column on the board there. It would be like GTM and then the name of the feature that is shipping that week. And like literally I'm leading a go-to-market launch that happens on December 3rd. And so I've got one just like this that I'm working on right now. And I can't tell you what it is, but you're going to love it. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of kind of keeping the focus on all the incremental tasks that are happening, and then breaking out those bigger launches into their own release.
Mm-hmm. This features board is my comfort zone. As soon as I saw it pop up on the screen, I like breathed a sigh of relief because this is where I live too. It's where I get all my work done, and it's so easy and helpful to use. And I love seeing something go green.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling. Okay, so also I'm going to keep you on for one more question. An individual shared a question that says, what tools are the teams building out your roadmaps working in, and how does AHA integrate with that system?
Got it. Well, obviously we are using AHA Develop, so shameless plug for that. Our engineering team, they're in AHA Develop all day long, managing their work. We use that for sprint planning and all those kind of agile activities. They also use GitHub. We use Figma on the design side. We have both of these integrated as extensions, so we can go into a feature at any time and see the designs, click to get into the actual Figma file, or we can see the latest status of a GitHub PR. It's kind of all pulled in, makes it nice. We can live in the feature in AHA and do the work that we need to do, and know that everything else is going well.
That's awesome. I have another question. It's kind of a fun one, so I'm going to pull Kelly in. I feel like I keep giving you the fun ones, Kelly. Sarah, I'm sorry. Austin, I'm sorry. I'll rethink it next time. But one person submitted, what areas or features of AHA do you use the most or love the most, and why?
Well, I mean, it's hard to not be biased about this. And of course, I love my own feature the most, right? My own product. But no, we covered a couple of the things that we're in a lot. And, we talked about the difference between the PO and the PM role. So it kind of depends on which hat I'm wearing at the time, which features I'm spending time in. But like in my PO hat, yeah, I'm in that features board. I'm in our develop views, making things happen. But when I'm wearing that PM hat, I tend to spend a lot of my time on the research tab, which you're showing here. Thank you. So this is where I capture all the work I do to prepare for a new feature or a new initiative. I use Sarah's products in the concept section here, like I'm creating whiteboards and notes to capture customer interviews, whiteboards with my rough mock-ups for what they're worth that I then, work with design on to make them actual beautiful designs. But I'm capturing it all here as I'm getting my thoughts together. I'm linking to ideas and analyzing the ideas that are related to this initiative or this feature. So I do spend a lot of time here thinking and gathering all my work together to then inform how are we going to, ship and define this feature. And it does also help to get that buy-in across the rest of the team too. It's like, hey, here's all the thought and all the information that went into the decisions that we made.
It's helpful to have just it sounds so simple, right? Having everything in one place, but this is that in action, which
exactly
is helpful on a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
My final question in this section is for Sarah. So how do you make sure all your documentation, all your product documentation is included in your product's development, embedded as part of the process? I feel like you're the expert here, so I've got to tap on your shoulder for this
I
one.
do spend a lot of time thinking about documentation.
Yeah.
Better for
Me
worse.
too.
I do. And so I think there's two pieces here. The first is kind of what Kelly touched on about how important it is to connect that to the work that the team is actually doing and where they're working. So the research tab is great for that, but we also do a lot of embedding content. So embedded whiteboards into either a feature description or a note, or even embedding roadmap or report views into something like a launch plan or an FAQ document to make it so that information is really easy to find, and it makes it easier to keep it up to date as well. That's really key. And the other piece is about making sure it's easy for people to access that information. So I can tell you about a company I used to work at where we kind of struggled with this. It was really hard for the product team to share information with the broader company. And I think that's because, if you think about a lot of companies that we've worked at, traditionally IT has kind of controlled the intranet at companies for things like general information, which makes sense, like policies or directories, your benefits information, right? That makes sense. And then often support will have some kind of customer knowledge page, But the reality is that a lot of product teams also have a lot of information that they need to share with all those different functional teams. And more of the product teams that I speak with are wanting to have a place of their own. So a place you can control and then collaborate on that documentation with all the other teams in the organization. So you can have control over proactively communicating out all that information that they need, like release notes or launch deliverables or feature guides. So you need to be able to decide who can see what and how they can access that information. So we use things like knowledge bases, both internally and externally, to help share that. I think it's really key because it's time for teams to be able to go boldly and share the information that everyone keeps asking them for. So this is one way that to give teams a place to share all of that relevant product information in a way that we can all collaborate on it throughout the entire product development life cycle.
Sarah, you're making documentation sound really fun and exciting.
It is. What are you talking about?
I didn't think that was possible, but it clearly is. Thank you. Well, we have just like a couple minutes left, and I have one question that I would love to end on because we started with the challenge. I asked you about challenges first, kind of the hard, sticky stuff. And I'd love to conclude on a high note, right? The stuff you love the most. So I have a question. I'd love to ask everyone. Maybe we can start with Kelly. And what do you love about being a PM? What do you love the most about this job?
Great question. And again, I'm going to sound biased, but I think I'm just really lucky. So I love, understanding people's problems and their challenges and actually being able to make an impact on their lives with the solutions we deliver. We all spend so much of our time working. So those improvements that I can make to someone's work life and how they can get things done, help them be rock stars at their jobs, maybe get promoted, all that. It's really impactful that I can do that. And I love that my product specifically helps people understand what their customers need as well. It's very meta. But I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would piggyback on that. I've always said that, like, if I can save my customers an hour of time that they can then go use to serve their own customers, like that's endless motivation for me. I would also say too, more tangibly, is like seeing a feature that we just launched get used. It's so rewarding. Kelly, I don't know if you remember when we launched the research tab that you were just showing earlier. Like you were talking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember when we launched that, and we rolled it out internally first, which we do with a lot of our features, just to make sure that everything's ready for everybody else. And we rolled the research tab out, and like everybody in every team across AHA was like using it like crazy, and we're like, whoa. Like we're onto something here, and then we rolled out to customers and immediately started seeing use and getting feedback and seeing ideas. It's like that's the best thing ever.
That's so true. Speaking of like shipping features, when we ship an idea and sometimes we get back comments when we ship an idea. It's like, oh, I love it, or thanks, or it's just it gives you that little warm fuzzy feeling, right? Being a PM can be hard, but when you do deliver something that customers appreciate, it means a lot.
Yeah.
Sarah, round us out.
All right. I think they stole my answer. That was going to be mine too. I think that is just such an impactful thing. But to take maybe a different angle on it, the other thing that I really love is as a PM, we get to work with all these different teams. And so we get a front row seat to being able to see everyone come together and solve really hard problems together. So that is really impactful for me to be able to see and be a part of everyone collaborating together and bringing in their own expertise for a common goal. Like that is just really special. And then at the end of the day, you get to see the impact that you make from coming together. So I love that.
Oh, love that. Sarah's very team oriented. She's awesome at that. Not that the rest of us aren't, but she's especially team oriented. And I love using Sarah's product, like her whiteboards, to do that collaboration, right? It's so much fun to get the whole team in there collaborating, brainstorming, doing mock-ups, all that.
Aww. I feel like if I could use an emoji in a Zoom call, it would be the group hug one right now. That would be the emoji I would show. Well, this was really awesome. I had so much fun talking to all of you. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Sarah, and everybody here for your participation. I don't want it to end, but I have to. And a reminder that we'll be sending out a recording tomorrow. And after we close out, we'd really appreciate your thoughts on how you think today's session went. Should we do it again? Let us know. And then lastly, if you have any product specific questions, our customer success team is always here to help. Just email us at support@aha.io. Thanks everybody, and have a really lovely warm holiday season next week for those of you in the US. Bye.